Have you made your New Year's resolutions list yet? For your dog? Yeah, it's a thing. Here are 5 things that need to be on that list, according to a vet. Welcome back to Alpha Paw, your destination for everything dog. I'm Bernie Zilio, and I'm on a mission to answer every doggone question you have ever had about your fur babies. And today, we are talking about the 5 things you need to be doing to ensure your dog has the best New Year's resolution list possible. New year, new dog. Thankfully, we have an expert with us today, Dr. Ross Bernstein. Dr. Ross is a seasoned veterinary professional and pet care expert. He earned his doctorate degree in veterinary medicine at UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, and his work has been featured in several industry-leading publications, including the Journal of Veterinary Surgery. He is our go-to vet for everything we want and need to know about our fur babies. So welcome back to Alpha Paw, Dr. Ross.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, 2021 is just around the corner. Woohoo! Put this year behind us. Now, we all should have New Year's resolutions, and if we don't, no judgment, do your thing. But apparently we should have a list of things for our dogs. So that is why you're here, to kind of walk us through it. So what is the number one thing that we should be paying attention to for our puppers for the new year?
Yes, I like that idea about having a list of New Year's resolutions for your dogs. That's awesome. That the top of my list is going to be their diet and nutritional health. So I think we made another video about some things to avoid in the diet, such as raw food, grain-free diets. But we always want to make sure that our pets are eating a well-balanced diet that is appropriate for their life stage. The easiest way to ensure this is looking at the food that you're buying them and looking for the AFCO statement. That AFCO statement can say whether or not this is a well-balanced diet and what life stage it's appropriate for. A lot of diets will say that they're approved for all life stages, which is a common misconception because people think they have an adult dog, and that does fall into the category of all life stages, but that's actually a food that's appropriate for feeding puppies as well. So it's very high in calories. And you can also talk to your vet about exactly how much kibble or wet food your dog should be getting, because there's always big ranges on the back of the bag that can also lead to your pet not getting what's ideal for them, and can lead to other health problems such as obesity.
So I know you mentioned portion sizes, and that seems to be an issue for a lot of people. I know the backs of the bags or the cans or whatever food we feed our dogs have portion size suggestions. But you're saying that we should speak to our vet to make sure that it's the correct portion size?
You can, yeah. When you're at your vet, you can, as part of all of our physical exams, we're going to grade your dog's body condition, with 1 being emaciated, skin and bones, 9 is they're obese and very overweight, with an ideal body range being between a 4 and a 5, where we can gently feel the ribs from the sides, and there's not too much fat and extra tissue between the skin and the bones. And so with that, your vet might make some diet recommendations for your dog, whether or not you're feeding them too much or too little, what treats or table food you can cut out, or maybe even the portions of the food itself that can be adjusted.
Interesting. This just popped into my brain, which often happens while we're talking. As a veterinary professional, is there a difference between kibble and wet food if it's like the exact same food? Is there a benefit to the wet food, a benefit to the dry food? Like, what's kind of the difference?
If it's the same food and the same brand and the exact same diet, the only difference is the moisture content, how much water is in it. So really let's say you're comparing one diet that's a dry food compared to its exact same diet in a wet food form. It's exactly the same. It's just the amount of water that's been added into it. Like if you took it and mix it with water and put it in a blender, it's not exactly that much the same, but it's It's pretty much like that. The difference between wet food and dry food in terms of oral health can sometimes make a little bit of a difference, because wet food can sometimes tends to stick or pack along the teeth and gums a little bit more than dry food. And so that can predispose them to developing or building up plaque and tartar and predisposing them to dental and oral health disease down the line. Now, sometimes if they've had veterinary work done, such as an extraction or a mouth surgery, the the wet food or dry food recommendations may be different depending on what was done and what your veterinarian recommends.
I see. Okay. So basically, our dogs are not dissimilar from how we operate in the sense that a lot of us are trying to better our diet and exercise routine in the new year. So I can totally understand why that's at the top of our list for our dogs. What is the second thing on our list, Dr. Ross?
Another important thing I want to mention is doing routine visits to your veterinarian, going in for your wellness exams, following up with preventative medications such as vaccines, flea and tick and heartworm medications, and catching problems early before they develop further and before they can become a life-threatening issue, and also treating them while they are treatable rather than having to face difficult decisions and difficult scenarios down the line, or treating the problem as an emergency versus treating it when it's not as life-threatening or serious.
Yes, Dr. Ross, I totally agree with you. I think being vigilant and catching problems early and taking our dog to the vet, not letting your groomer's grandpa's psychiatrist cousin diagnose your dog. Very, very important. Now, this next one, number 3, we have spoken about so much on this show, but it is so, so, so important. And I think we need to talk about it again, and that is oral health. Can you explain to us again why it is so important and why it should be at the top of our list for our dog's New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, oral health is extremely important in our pets, dogs, cats, and pretty much any animal that eats food through its mouth, which is most of them. So, just like you or I, we should go to regular dentist visits, and we also should be brushing our teeth every day, if not twice a day. And so the same goes for our for our animals. So if we don't brush our teeth, plaque and tartar can build up. Plaque it's a mixture of food particles and bacteria, and it can create a thin film on our teeth that can lead to bad breath, or halitosis is the medical word for that. It can lead to tooth decay, periodontal disease, gingivitis, which is inflammation of the gums. And then even what's worse is that bacteria from periodontal disease can get into the bloodstream, and that can affect pretty much almost every organ in the body, including the heart. And so, if we can prevent this from happening, that's always much better than dealing with it when it's really bad and potentially an emergency.
Absolutely. And I know we have spoken about this before, but it's difficult sometimes to brush your dog's teeth. If they're not very into it, or, taking them to the vet to get a proper cleaning, like sometimes it's nice to have a little magic wand. And I am obsessed with this magic mouthwash from Alpha Paw. I'm like not even told to say this right now. I just genuinely love this mouthwash. I put a little bit in Pod's water bowl, and it helps with all of those things that we just talked about. So it's a nice, like, in between, in between brushes, in between, I was almost going to say dentist visits, vet visits. Okay, so I kind of mentioned before about how we shouldn't be relying on strangers and their diagnosis of our dogs and their opinions, and we should just take our dogs to the vet. The same would hold true for over Googling and trying to figure out homeopathic remedies on our own. They could be helpful, but they should not be solely what we rely on, right, Dr. Ross?
Yeah, it's always good to do your own research at home and take other people's opinions into consideration and try to figure out or self-diagnose conditions in our pets. But at the same time, I think you should, if you are doing your research at home, read those articles or blog posts, or listen to your friend at the dog park. Listen to them with a skeptical eye and know where they're gathering their information, whether or not they are a veterinary professional, what their qualifications are, if this evidence is from a reputable source, if it is peer reviewed. Like the other day, for example, I saw a dog that came in. It had a seizure that morning. It had really nasty skin disease. It wasn't walking around at all, really. And the owner was convinced that it was the shampoo that she used on the dog 6 weeks ago, and printed out these blog posts and
Oh,
an
wow.
article she had written. And while that's good that she's doing her research and trying to figure it out, not one of those articles was written by a veterinarian or any sort of medical professional. And while that shampoo could potentially have an allergic or adverse reaction, it's highly unlikely to lead to something 6 weeks down the line and lead to all these other things that were going on with the dog. And so while it's okay that she's, or that in that particular case they're looking it up, it's our job as a veterinarian to let them know that not all sources on the internet are reliable. We have done our training and we have our experience, and that we are making recommendations for the right reasons, and we truly do care about your pets and want what's best for them.
I know. And we've talked about that before too, where you guys are in this because of the love of the animal. And any test you have to run them because you can't ask the animal what hurts. You can't ask the animal what's wrong. It's very important that we put our faith and our trust in veterinarians, because at the end of the day, we're only as good as our Google search, and you guys are the ones with the real knowledge. So that's very important to keep in mind. Bring us home with number 5, Dr. Ross. What is the 5th thing that should be on our dog's New Year's resolution?
I'm going to make this a broad category of knowing what's normal for your dog. Whether that's you take them to the park and you know that they always eat grass, and then one day they just don't eat it at all, or sometimes they never eat grass and all of a sudden they start eating grass. Knowing what's normal. So that can also be in terms of training. So you can know that if they get scared by bicyclists riding by every day, you can start to train them to not attack the person on the bicycle when they come by. And or fireworks, for example, slowly gearing them up to the big day by slowly exposing them to louder sounds. It can also be really helpful knowing what's normal for your dog when all of a sudden they start acting abnormally, and that might tip you off that there could be a systemic illness or something else going on medically that needs a little bit more attention. So that's my fifth tip.
Okay, awesome. And I think in general training, especially right now, we're all home. I mean, we should be home. I'm watching all of you. We should be home, and we should be taking advantage of the fact that we have the time, and we have endless resources online. As I just finished saying, don't trust everything on the internet, but you can absolutely find virtual trainers online. You can research proper training methods. It's so important. It keeps your dog safe. It keeps you sane. It's just better for them overall, I think. So I so appreciate all of the advice, Dr. Ross. Do you guys have more questions for Dr. Ross? Drop them down in the comment section below. Again, I'm Bernie Zilio, and this is Alpha Paw. Be sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single doggone episode. We'll see you next time.